For a cat, for a feline.
Drive by. Please stand for the pledge.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, thank you for coming. Would you please turn off your cell phone so it won't disrupt the meeting? And Kelly, will you call roll?
Yes. John Hedges.
Here.
Gary Cutley.
Here.
Heidi Larson.
Here.
Ashley Overton. Here. Dale Ryder.
Here.
Erica Weaver. Here. Michelle Skinner.
Here. We do not have any agenda visitors, but I have several non-agenda visitors that wish to speak. We have a fancy timer now. Cheryl Armstrong is here to speak to us.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cheryl Armstrong, and I'm just coming because I've heard some concerns and maybe even more questions in the community. I know that everyone's concerned about the standardized test scores because they were not good at all. I know the district is as well. But a couple of the things that people have been talking to me about that I don't know are contributing to that, but it could be, that we seem to have a lot of online learning. I had heard that freshman math was all online learning. I have a question of that. I mean, is that really happening? I think it would be difficult to learn math if you're doing it online. I know I would have trouble with that, and I love math. I'm good at math. Another thing things that have been raised are no homework in some. I don't think it's with all teachers. I know it's not with all teachers because I've asked other parents and they say, yeah, they have a little bit of homework. But kind of I'm hearing a lot of people saying that there's no homework. And the school districts, I was a school psychologist for the Mattoon School District and was the RTI coordinator for Riddle before I retired. When you're looking at response to interventions, we're supposed to be using scientifically research-based interventions. And I think I would question if online learning is that research-based, that's how all kids learn best. I mean, we all know that they're saying cut screen time of children. And we know that they get a lot of screen time at home. So then if we're plugging them in a lot at school and they're going home to do that, there's just not a lot of interaction with their teachers. We certainly know that children are lacking in communication skills with the give and take of conversation and being able to listen to people in the room with them. Like I said, I just have questions if maybe those would be some things that might help. And then another concern that I heard from some parents was that there was a book read at Williams in our mother's house, and I did listen to it on YouTube, and it was on two mothers. And not that we don't have families in our community like that. I just don't know that the school is the place that should be teaching those types of things. And I know the inclusion, curriculum, things like that are being really heavily pushed, but I don't think that people in our community are liking the fact that those things are being pushed. And it's not just in elementary grades, but that I'm just hearing people. So I guess if you haven't noticed, I have. Our society is declining, spiraling morally. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Brandy Gass.
Hi, I'm Brandy Gass, and
Oh, before you start, I didn't know if some people knew that we have a 3-minute time limit on speaking. That's why we have this.
okay, thanks. And I think as parents are concerned about the safety in the schools right now. We've had a couple of, I think, incidents that's happened in the past couple of weeks that in the community, of course, out there. My question is, my son has gone through a school shooting already. What can we do to prevent this happen again? We want to know the safety measures again as parents. We need to know what's going on with these, if there's kids that are having this issue. We're seeing this stuff on YouTube, like as she's saying, there's a lot of this screen time, a lot of this stuff's going on. You know, I was told there's an evaluation that they go through, but if there are 2, or I don't even know what all this means, but this is just what I've been hearing. When they come back to the school, what is going on? Like, what is the steps? What's keeping them from having something in their backpack or carrying it on them? Or why can't we, I don't know, but I can't do that again, go through what he went through. And, you know, there's gotta be steps, but there's gotta be something we can do. I don't know. If they're evaluating at these, I mean, even the parents, parents of these kids are even talking that they're concerned about this child, like his own parent. I'm not trying to call anybody out, but if they're concerned still, and he's at the school, I don't know, but I just wish like there was maybe, I mean, we rallied as when he was a freshman and we raised money for t-shirts, and when, you know, could we do a metal detector or a wand or something that we're not literally touching the child, and they could just, like, these children that are in trouble or whatever, could we just take the wand on them or something? And we couldn't get it done, but maybe a safety meeting, like, can we have some of the moms or dads or whatever in a meeting, or we would help. I would be willing to come in and whatever, help, but I can't, I don't know. I don't want to go through that again with another, and I don't want anybody else's child to either, but I think the screen time, like you were saying, I think a lot of it, it's not fair to the kids, it's not fair to the teachers, you guys. We gotta help do something, and I'm willing to do it. That's just all I ask.
I'm sure the administration will take into all of your comments and deal with that. Tyson Gass.
So my name is Tyson Gass. That's my mom. I graduated class of 2021, which means if you can do the math, class of 2020 or 2017 was the shooting. I was a freshman. I was in the cafeteria, less than 15 feet away from the shooter. That trauma that I gathered at the high school is something that I'll carry to my grave, something that my girlfriend will carry to her grave. Yeah, I wear this necklace to remind me that there's a difference between being a survivor and being lucky. I've got a brother going through high school, and this pain that I'm showing here today is not something that I want him to ever experience. So I really ask that we take into consideration things that we can do around the building, simple steps that we can take, money that we can spend, metal detectors, locked doors, inform teachers, something that would make the confusion less frightening. I shouldn't have to hear from my brother how petrified he is to go to lunch every day. I shouldn't have to drive my brother across town because he can't sit in that cafeteria and eat. This happened 6 years ago, but my trauma is contagious. I can't see it happen to any more kids. So I stand here figuratively on my knees, begging for a change. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. Dr. John, is it Coyne?
Can I
Dr.
ask a
John
question
Coyne.
real quick? Are there anything that we could legally share with concerned parents about safety protocols? Is this appropriate? Can we offer some comfort in that? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, my encouragement, and Randy, you and I have spoke many a time, and I appreciate you reaching out. And I think the best step here is to start where the concern is. And I'm sure you've had those conversations with the high school, but ultimately that is where we can make a difference. And so that would be my encouragement. The board's not going to solve anything this evening in regards to that. I'm grateful that you guys are here to share those concerns and would open that, encourage and open that dialogue. And we'd be happy to kind of sit down and talk through some of those thoughts. So that would be the best thing.
I just don't like the gossip and the, you know, and of course at the school, the kids are now doing the gossip and the talking, and I don't think it's fair on either side, the kids' side or the other children's side either. So to knock it out of the ballpark, it's gotta stop. And I know it's not, but
And Heidi, that's why I said the administration would look that over to see what they can do or what they can release.
I
I appreciate, Tyson, I know the courage that it takes to be here tonight and to share the vulnerability, and just thank you for the overview.
Thank you.
Dr. John Coyne.
Hi there, I am Dr. John Coyne, pastor at First Southern Baptist Church. And recently, I want to thank you guys for your time and your ears and your service. I appreciate you all. I was talking with some high schoolers in my church that were honor roll students at Mattoon High School. They enrolled in EIU and a couple at Lakeland, and they had to take remedial math and English courses because their education they received was not anywhere up to par. And I started looking into it, trying to figure out if it was a localized or if it was a larger problem, and had discovered that the SAT scores of Mattoon is amongst the worst in the state. And I was wondering if the board was aware that 80% or over 80% of the students meet less than the minimum requirements of the community colleges, and didn't know if you guys had a plan to try to change that or to turn that ship around to get the education scores higher.
Thank you.
Can
Appreciate
I,
your comments.
Dr. Quinn, can you provide me with the number and the ranking that you just referenced?
Yeah.
Can you give me something in writing, or
Yeah,
I can give you my
if you go to
email.
like Illinois.gov and also to like Illinois report card, you'll find that it is, for math, 12.1% meet the minimum requirements, 87.9 do not. When you go to English, it's a little bit better, but not much better. It still stands at about 80% not being able to meet the minimum requirements for English and math. I don't know if that helps. I talked with some of the professors who also said that they're, like one lady in my church had to write curriculum for Lakeland College for the Mattoon students for the remedial class to get them up to minimum standard for math. And so she was in the Journal Gazette for the curriculum that she wrote for that, trying to help students get there. And yay, they're all on Dean's List now, which is exciting, but they had to take a whole semester of classes that they had to pay tuition for that didn't count toward their credits in graduation.
Thank you. Angela Hampton.
Evening. Like most of you, I'm sure, I was hoping that after the NSES issues, we would be past this because there are clearly more important issues. But I did email all of you a video that was part of the social emotional learning curriculum in the 7th grade class. And the reason I started looking into that is because my daughter had come home and shared some things that she had been taught, or her version of what she had been taught, that were concerning to us personally, that kind of ran counter to our family values. But I wanted to trust but verify that. So I went searching and found one of the videos that she referenced, and that's what I shared with you. So in the interest of time, and not to rehash what you've already seen, and certainly not to assume that everyone shares our family's opinions, I have shared this with Dale, so I just want to share that with all of you, that my specific request as it relates to the SEL curriculum. One of my concerns was that not everyone was aware of the content in the videos, and in fact, some of my older daughter's teachers actually chose not to show them the videos. So different things are happening in different classes, and some of the teachers are sharing their personal opinions with the videos, which I think can lead to issues, not just for the students and some confusion there, but perhaps issues for the teachers. So I would ask if it's possible for everyone involved to view the videos and be aware of what they're showing the students, especially since some of the material in the videos could potentially be offensive to a percentage of the student population. When they invoke some of these highly charged themes, if we're going to continue to show them, I would ask that the school district consider sharing links to those videos with all parents, along with an opt-out option. That's happening in the Marshall School District, and I'm sure some other school districts, because when we say it's an anti-bullying curriculum, that's a pretty broad scope. And so if we give parents the opportunity just to view those, and they like them, great. And if they don't, we would appreciate an opt-out option, and then something constructive for the students to do during that opt-out time, so they don't feel like they're being excluded. And my final concern, I think, relates back to when we were reviewing the NSES. One of the things that the board was considering was having professionals come in to teach that material, because it is so important, and it is medical. So we had talked about nurses and doctors and medical professionals coming in. I would, and I hope you believe, as I do, that SEL is equally as important. Social emotional learning. I mean, these are things that counselors and social workers do, and we're, of course, understaffed, as many districts are in that area. We have no idea if the teachers who are teaching these subjects are in any way qualified to be teaching something as important as social and emotional learning. It's a lot to put that on a teacher. I don't know if they're equipped to have that burden on them. So I would just ask that those 4 points be considered moving forward.
Thank you very much. Brandon Stewart.
Yes, I can stand up. My name is Brandon Stewart, and I guess just to piggyback off you two a little bit, I think that you were speaking of the threat level assessment that they give certain students. Is there, I know you guys probably can't share that publicly, but is that something as a concerned parent that she could get a hold of you guys and find out? And if she has any other information to share to appeal that initial threat level assessment, if something new has come up, is that something that she could reach out to you guys and get?
We can share the process, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we can't share the individual student.
Absolutely not, yeah, but just the process, because I know you guys partner with the police department on that process as well. So I just didn't know if it was public knowledge or it was something she could call and reach out and find, so I don't know if that helps or not. To piggyback into that, I guess on the agenda tonight is the parking lot for the lift building, which I understand that money has already been well allotted for. But to go into, piggyback off them a little bit more, as far as the upgrades we've got in the high school and the middle school and the just the maintenance upkeep on a lot of those buildings, the doors in the high school, all glass. As far as safety goes, Mr. Frederick was here 2-3 months ago talking about that. Easily accessible if somebody wanted to break them. So as far as safety goes, do we have any plans to upgrade any of that? Do we have any plans to, because I know we've got leaks in the roof, we've got missing ceiling tiles in the middle school. We've got several different maintenance aspects that need to be addressed. And we spent gods of plenty money on the sporting facilities and the lift building and all that. Are we going to look at our current buildings that are in place that house the majority of our students and take care of them, not just, and I know the lift building, absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of hands-on learning and different curriculums like that. That's what I do for a living. But we also can't disregard the buildings, and the kids spend 5 days a week, 8 hours a day there. And if the roofs are leaking, and I heard there was mice and stuff and cockroaches in the middle school earlier this week. I know that you can't always prevent that. But anyway, I'm just asking, is there plans for maintenance on those buildings?
Thank you.
Can we just note that the money that was spent on the sport complex, that was appropriated specifically for that? So we couldn't do anything else with it. That was not just taken out of our operating budget, but that was granted to the district.
Was the whole portion of it?
That money was specifically granted to this district for the sports complex. So that wasn't a, let's take it from the operating
No, and
budget.
that's not what I was saying.
Not that you were saying it, I just wanted to make sure that was noted,
Okay,
that
gotcha.
wasn't a choice of putting one thing over the other.
Yeah.
That was granted and gifted to the district for those purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. You're done. Thank you. Under item 3, consent agenda for board action. 3.1, approval of minutes. 3.1A, regular board meeting, January 10th, 2023. 3.2, financial payment bills. 3.2A, presentation of the bills for approval. 3.2B, monthly financial reports by fund. 3.2C, budget to actual reports. 3.3, enrollment report. 3.4, freedom of information report. 3.5, board approval of student participation in National Leadership Symposium in Washington, D.C., March 1st through 4th, 2023. 3.6, approval of MHS Greenway Winter Guard to MCCGA Winter Guard Championships, March 31st through April 1st, 2023 in Springfield, Missouri. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Erica. By Dale. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Kelly, will you call roll?
Heffley,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Scanlon.
Yes.
Item 4, reports and recommendation of the business manager.
I'm deferring to Mr. Gear.
Mr. Gear, board action for permission to solicit bids for parking lot ed lift.
All right, I don't have any donations this month, so I'm sorry. All right, so, I was already mentioned a little bit.
Easy it now, trust me.
What's down?
There you go.
Experienced guy. All right, so we're here to talk about the parking lot lift. This project was discussed when the district purchased the lift building. This was put off so that we weren't in the way when they were doing the renovations for the lift. We didn't want concrete being torn out and being poured. We didn't want heavy equipment driving on the new concrete to get our stuff that needs to go into the building. So this was delayed. We knew it was coming. We'd like the new parking lot project finished before we put up the solar canopy. Get that donated. Board decided to accept that donation, $500,000 for a solar canopy, which will help offset some of the cost of our electricity over there as we move forward. And we are going to, if approved, use sales tax money to do this going forward and put it in the fiscal year 24 budget. So the idea is to work on it this summer and then pay for it in the fall. So using next year's budget. So, oh my goodness, babe. All right, so I have Andrew here from Up Church who's just gonna talk for a few minutes about kind of some schematics that I have on this.
So we're primarily gonna stay in the same location as the current parking lot. The blue here would be where the solar panels are going to be located over the primary parking spaces. And then there'll be some parking spaces around the front and then on the back side as well. There'll be approximately 50 total in this lot. The primary reasons to do this now in conjunction with the solar panels, they're gonna have to set inverters and run new cabling for the solar panels to tie into the grid system. And so, if you were to keep the current lot, there would be a lot of trenches that are saw cut throughout. There are 4 specific locations the columns have to fall. And so if you were to leave it in the current lot, the parking spaces do not currently fall out to where the columns are located. And so you would actually lose more parking spaces, / you'd have to relay out the parking lot. So you can accomplish a couple of those things now. Another thing is just in general, if you were to come back and do this 4 or 5 years later, construction causes a lot of dust and debris. Solar panels don't function well when there's a lot of dust and debris on them. And so you would lose time in gaining energy, I guess, during the construction period, which would be in the summer, which is when you get peak solar gain for the panels. And then on the flip side, you'd have to pay a contractor to come in and clean those solar panels down the road after the construction is complete. Another reason to do that now, equipment is big. Tandem trucks spreading rock out to improve the base and drainage need height, and these panels are at fixed height. They don't move. You don't want to pay to deconstruct them. Concrete trucks are also tall. Excavators working around this equipment would be extremely difficult, and I would say would raise the price pretty heavily in working around this to try to maintain these solar panels in their current configuration. So, there are several reasons I believe that would benefit the district now and long-term in tackling this beforehand. It also will allow the setting of the panels to take place on the older surface. So when they bring in the cranes to set the big poles, that equipment isn't putting wear and tear on an old surface that then stays damaged, or it's going to take place on the old surface that then gets replaced. So it just makes a lot of sense. I don't see a problem schedule-wise in tackling this. If we go out for bid this month and you have a bid next month at the meeting and you approve it, we'll be able to get on a contractor's schedule in a timely manner. They'll be able to come in when school gets out, do some initial removal. Commercial Electric will be able to come in and set the poles or the posts and pour all the foundations, run all the wiring. They'll come in and lay the new surface over the top in the middle of July, and that'll allow Commercial to bring in their small lifts to set the panels over the top. So this should not have any impact on the school year. It should fall in nicely in that 45 to 60 day window that we're given for construction. And this is just kind of shows some of the wiring that takes place. So Commercial Electric is going to put some new poles for security purposes to shine lights out there. Obviously, when you have a canopy, pole lights that are above that, the lighting won't reach down. And so Commercial Electric is going to put some lighting on the underside of those canopies to keep those areas lit up of an evening. And then there'll be new lights to go around the flagpole. So this just kind of is a diagram of some of the stuff that Commercial is going to do as part of their scope. Any questions or comments?
We don't see any.
Can I ask you a question, Mike? And maybe,
And
I appreciate you and Tom helping me financially try to understand. So, and it makes perfect sense, like why we would do this. The question I have is, if we're at 112 for students, like how are we offsetting all the other costs for the lift? So like spending more money when we're not maximizing the number of students, like how does all that work from a budget perspective?
And I think that's a very loaded question for tonight, but, you know, we're got a plan, we're working through this. Our biggest thing is to get more kids in the building. We get more kids in the building, we get more tuition from other districts, and that'll help offset the costs. This is something we know has to be done. We have solar panels sitting on the ground over there. So right now, I think we're just tackling the idea of, we want to get this parking lot done so we get solar panels up. And then, like I said, it's a very valid question. I don't think right now is the time to answer that question or talk about that question, but I'd love to talk about it with you some other time. But I understand, it's an expensive process. We knew that when we bought the building. We budgeted for it. We know it's not going to be solved in 1 year. This is a process that we're going to go through. And it's something brand new that we've never done as a district before, as a community, and I think it's well worth the money, but we're gonna have to come up with a plan, like you said, to alleviate some of the costs as we go forward.
As a follow-up, I have a question. So the panels, the solar panels that are sitting on the ground right now, I believe, I don't remember your name, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Church, but you noted that once those are up, they will offset some of the expenses that we have.
Yes,
So
correct.
there will be a financial benefit if we can get those up and going and utilize them.
For the solar panels, correct, yes. And also to do the parking lot now, because, you know, obviously nothing ever gets cheaper year over year. So even if you were to wait 5 years from now, you're gonna have material increases, labor increases, plus the difficulty of working around the said construction. So you could maybe not double your project if you waited 5 years from now, but you could add 25, 30, 40% to the cost of what it could be if you do it this year.
And materials are higher now than they were 2 years ago.
Oh, yes.
And if we put the panels up now and then go back and redo or correct the issues with the parking lot, then we'll also have to pay to remove the panels, put them back and clean them.
Maybe not remove them, but certainly clean them, and you'll create more difficulties in labor finishing, having to work around the panels as they're installed. I mean, when there's 4 posts, it's not a big deal, but when you have a canopy that you have to drive equipment around, and concrete workers to finish around, and trucks moving in not quite an easy manner, it's just gonna drive the labor cost up on top of just regular old inflation of labor.
Thank you both.
And Andrew, you talked about the scheduling. That's a big thing because during the winter, these contractors are setting their schedule for the next summer.
Correct. And so by getting this out now, instead of waiting a month or two, you have a better opportunity to be first in line for that contract. You know, if you were to wait to bid this until March or April or May, you may not make that window. And so then you're looking at a year from now, and then you're either delaying the solar project or your costs have gone up because you're having to work around it.
Thank you.
I kind of look at it too as like building a house. Whenever you go to paint the walls, you do it without the trim, and it's so much faster. But if you put the trim up and then you have to tape it, it's more time consuming. So it just makes more sense to do it sooner than after they're already up.
And just to be clear, like, I understand the value of the, putting the, you know, I think we just came from the high school, so the parking lots are not good either, right? I understand the value of that in the process. My concern is just being fiscally smart and understanding, like, I don't know what we spend the money at the Live Building. I don't know how we're offsetting costs, and so when we're asking to spend more money, I just think our job is to be fiscally responsible, and just trying to make sense and understand that.
And
I get that we're budgeting it next year on sales tax, and that's what that money is for, but just sort of offsetting some of those costs.
And then too, like I said, the electricity will be a little, it'll offset some of the electricity bills because of the solar panels we're working, so that'll help us out some too.
Any other questions?
Any more?
Thank you.
All right, so just a quick timeline, February 14th, solicit bids. March 14th, at the board, hopefully get board approval at the next board meeting. Begin construction as soon as school's out. And then once the concrete is down and cured, we put the solar canopy on top, and then striping and completion before school starts in the fall. So as we move forward, I guess I'm asking for the board to approve soliciting bids for the parking lot and lift building.
I need a motion to solicit bids for the parking lot at Lift, please.
So moved.
Dale, second.
Yes.
Who said that?
Gary.
Gary.
I want to get Gary. Okay, all those in favor of soliciting bids, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Did you get that, Callie?
You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, item 5, reports and recommendations of the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Dr. Scosi.
Thank you. The board has before them the February personnel report.
Good morning.
All right. We have 5.1 certified resignations. Daniel Herrera has resigned back to middle school ELA teacher effective the end of 22-23 school year. Nate Pugh, who's sitting back there in the corner, is resigned as Met 2 middle school principal effective July 1, 2023. We sure enjoyed Nate. He came back home, was a principal of a building he loves so much. He's going to be a superintendent over in Oakland. So, congratulations to you. Mr. Wiles, James Wiles, AKA Elvis, that's how it is. Retiring, he's gonna leave the building. Mantle High School at 2024, and all that time to say goodbye for a little tour. But anyway. Okay, certified appointments, Alex Bratton, substitute teacher effective immediately. John Covington, substitute teacher effective immediately. Julie Degler, substitute teacher. Lisa Endenbrock, substitute teacher. Cheyenne Evans, substitute teacher effective immediately. Jaden Logan, substitute teacher. And then Levi Reynolds, substitute teacher effective immediately. And that's wonderful. You can tell mid-year graduates picking up some other folks, so we're sure appreciative of that. Classified resignations, Cassandra Chapman, Williams Elementary School supervisor effective January 6th, 2023. Classified appointments, Bobby Ballinger, Williams Elementary School self-contained parapro, effective immediately. Bailey Galladay, Mattoon High School parapro, pending paraprofessional license, effective when she receives that. Elizabeth Harrington, Franklin Preschool parapro, effective immediately. Nicole Hurst, who's currently the high school secretary to the principal in attendance. We'll move on over here. We're recommending for accounts payable and receivables secretary, effective March 1st, 2023. Ava Rock, Franklin Preschool parapro, pending parapro license, effective immediately. When I say that, the way that works now, they take the test over the ROE and we get that information, but we don't depend or make sure they pass the exam. It's important. Gary Cardinal, substitute parapro, effective immediately. Cassandra Chapman, substitute parapro. Gerald Gregg, substitute custodian. And Rachel Cushman, substitute bus driver and substitute bus aide, effective immediately. Jeffrey Jean, retiree, and Mr. Jeff Jean, custodian at sub-custodian, effective immediately, have to have him get back. Jolyn Kendall, substitute parapro. James Long, substitute custodian. Gavin Morgan, substitute bus aide and effective immediately. Jeremy Sparks, substitute custodian, effective immediately. And Tamara Spoor, substitute parapro, effective immediately. Continuing. Nicholas Stoneburner, substitute bus driver, effective immediately. Joseph Zadella, substitute school bus driver, effective immediately. Kyle Henderson, volunteer. Mitchell Kramer, volunteer. Benjamin Sentner, volunteer. Phil Spencer, volunteer. Jason Whitlatch, volunteer. And Mildred Zackow, volunteer, effective immediately. Extracurricular resignations. Joy Vanesti is resigning as Mattoon Middle School 6th grade boys track, effective immediately. Extracurricular assignments. Megan Mixel, 7th grade boys track coach, effective immediately, and Carter Pruitt, Lloyd Pruitt, 6th grade boys and girls track coaches, effective immediately. And then for the addendum, Emily Kaiser, substitute teacher, effective immediately. Corbin Roth, who's been a wonderful intern for us over at the high school. For us this year, the guidance counselor at EIU. He's done a wonderful job, and we'd like to recommend him for hire for Krista Jackson, who's retiring at the end of the year at Williams Elementary School guidance counselor, effective 23-24 school year. Exceptional young man. Very lucky to have him. AJ Nichols is resigned as LIP head custodian, effective February 9, 2023. Jenny Epperson, substitute bus driver, substitute bus aide, recommended for hire immediately. Daniel Elzer, volunteer, and Jacob Kimmery, volunteer, effective immediately. Are there any questions? See none, go ahead.
Dr. Scosi, I wonder if you would like the board president to entertain a motion between now and the end of the meeting to sing you happy birthday.
No. So, no.
Okay.
But is there any other questions from the board? See none, that I make a recommendation, for the Board of Education to accept the personnel report as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ashley and Erica? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Those opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, that's a roll call vote. I had a V written there. Please call roll.
Overton.
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Hedges.
Yes.
Kepley.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Skidmore.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Dr. Scosi, thank you for all the time you put into this every month, trying to get those spots filled. I know the whole team works on it, but that's a lot, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a team effort, our administrators, our staff going out there selling our district, being mentors and being out there and taking student teachers in and block and turn faculty teachers. They really sell the district and the experience with those folks.
It's much appreciated.
So we're fortunate, we're truly fortunate. You can work with a district here in the area, just got notification today, can't have classes tomorrow or the rest of the week because they have staffing issues. We don't run into that here, so we're fortunate. Count the blessings. All right, the next item on the agenda is non-resident tuition waiver for Maxine School District employees. Correct, Madam President?
Yes.
Okay. I was asked to present this to the board for information. Non-resident tuition waiver for employees. This is something that's come up in our district several years. Little history, quick history lesson. We've talked about applying for non-resident tuition waiver for our employees several times over the past 10 years. I've been here, it's my 21st year. The last 2 years, most recently, in 2016, during collective bargaining with Maxine Education Association, and then also with the association board specifically on March 19th, 2021. And the question came about, and at that time, the board and the group decided not to move forward. There's two factors that really drove that when I look back at the minutes and notes from those previous experiences. One, neighboring districts around us, the Charlestons, the Oaklands, specifically in our county, and then other Tuscolas, for example, in our area, did not apply for that waiver. We are the largest district with the highest number of employees that would impact people that do not live in the district. That would have an impact on our neighbors. So like, you know what? We're still good candidate pools. We're able to get some things, the human capital out there with markets of the district, it was working. So what wasn't an issue then, so we started, stay the status quo. That's what we all together decided to do. Well, now we look at current employee data. What we have 93 licensed employees, and this is as of this past week, that reside out of district, and 55 classified employees, secretary, bus drivers, cooks. All right, that's classified in this realm, live outside the district. So we have 148 of our roughly 466 employees that live outside the district. Currently full-time employees. We have another 244 part-time employees as well in the district, subs, for example. So 148 live outside the district or reside outside our school district. So if this was to come into play, basically, again, this is a real rough estimate because we don't ask people when we hire them, like, how many kids do you have? We claim to have kids. It just doesn't, not supposed to do that. But we estimate that potentially this would impact 15%, about 20 or 30 of the 148 of those employees that reside outside the district that potentially would have school-aged children come into the district if this was something the board was looking to do and forward to apply for the waiver. And again, understand that dynamic. Typically, people that have school children already enrolled schools socially, grade-wise, where they're at, they don't typically want to move out of that setting. So you look at the long play for that. So why are we looking at this again? Shifting recruitment and retention efforts. If we look at the 25 school districts in the Regional Office of Education, which it serves at ROE 11, which serves 25 school districts, I believe it's 11 counties that does that in our ROE, is rather large. Mattoon, Charleston, Tuscola, and Villa Grove do not have approved waivers. The rest of them do. They do offer this as a benefit to their employees. It's our understanding, and work with our fellow administrators in these other districts, Charleston, Tuscola, and Villa Grove, that they are applying for the waiver as well. So we would be the only district that would not in our ROE have this waiver.
Now it comes in, I like to compete, get the best candidate in employment. I want to compete and be at good levels with, for our district or else get the best and brightest here for our students to help them learn and grow. So looking at that, the current and future employees view this as a benefit, and they do, and they ask about it. And they're unable to find and also the challenge is, and we're all residents, or we all live in Mattoon here, it's hard to find housing. We get that quite a bit in our office when we have people come look into the district to live here and have kids go here as well, but it's hard to find housing. So that becomes an issue and a challenge then. So workforce shortages continue to be a challenge for our region in certain instructional and classified positions in our district. Again, the candidate pools aren't as large as they used to be. Like I just go through the personnel report, present that's great and that's wonderful, but we still have positions that aren't filled in our district that we get by with subbing out for a year or two. So it's not all perfect, but again, those numbers, and that's just not Mattoon, Illinois, that's just not state of Illinois, that's a national trend. I did some research the other day, working with someone on a dissertation exam, and with them doing some graduate work, and this was in Kentucky. Anyway, he cited some research from 2020 to 2022, 300,000 teachers left the profession in the United States. 300,000 in a 2-year period. That's a challenge. It's a national challenge. But again, so the ramifications of that, understand that. So it's driving this as well. So if we were going to move forward in this direction, some requirements and timelines that the board needs to be cognizant of to move forward, is they would apply for the waiver for the Illinois compiled statutes or the schools code here that would permit the district to allow district employees' children who are non-resident pupils to attend the school district tuition free. In order for that to happen, you have to conduct a public hearing and regular board meeting, similar to what you do with a budget hearing meeting. So you would have that at a regular board meeting as an agenda item. And that could be March 10th, 2023, during the regular Board of Education. Then you put a notice of public hearing in the paper, and that's to be published 14 days on our website in advance of that public hearing, and 7 days in local newspapers. So that's February 28th and March 7th respectively. Then provide written notice to both the associations, the Mattoon Education Association, MESPA, Mattoon Education Support Personnel Association, 7 days prior to the public hearing meeting. Then also lastly, provide written notice to the public hearing to our state legislators that that's occurring. We would do that on February 28th. Then you would conduct a public hearing at the regular board meeting, and then you would open that up for people during the public hearing to have testimony, document the number of people that are there who attended, those in favor, those or against. Requests, comments are made during that meeting, then it's closed, then the board would take action to either accept or not accept the motion to apply for the waiver. If you do accept the motion, we have 15 calendar days after the public hearing to submit to the State Board of Education and the legislatures to receive the waiver. And the waiver is good for 5 years. After 5 years, you have to reapply again. So that's the timeline of the process. Are there any questions?
Please.
Dr. Scott, what, to apply for it is not to go forward with it, is an accurate statement. In other words, there's a timeline that you've laid out. Is it an option for the board to go forward with the application, but then decide later, no, we're not going to do this?
I think the waiver's for 5 years. I know that. If, for example, you were doing that, you went in, the board approved it, we submitted the waiver, and then you said you didn't want to. I'm sure you could request that from the state board to rescind the waiver.
I think it actually goes to the General Assembly, if I'm correct, for approval of that waiver. So that's the ultimate deciding body that determines this. It's outside of the Illinois State Board of Education's determination.
Is your question that if you apply for it, that means we want to do it? Is that your question?
Yeah, does applying for it mean we are committed to doing it?
If
In
you
year
apply
one.
for the waiver, if the board takes action, we would apply for the waiver, then it would need to be approved. But yes, if you vote on that, you're stating that you want to move forward with that process.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking is the vote to apply the same as the vote to waive the tuition in the first year?
For 5 years. You're voting to submit that waiver to the General Assembly.
Okay.
This is just a presentation, we don't.
Yeah, we're not
No,
voting
no,
anything
no.
tonight, it's just giving you information.
Okay, okay, all right. So you're not asking for a vote?
No.
Okay, okay.
No, I would have ended that with the
Okay,
recommendation.
because I have a string of other questions lined up based on the fact,
Yeah, but
based on the
we're
notion that we were going to vote on.
Information.
One other question I do have is, can the district, I think you answered it, can the district use the waiver in year one and then decide in years 2 through 5, we're not gonna do it because everyone else around us dropped it?
I've never seen that happen, but
I think we could look into that.
We
I don't
would ask
believe
that.
that. I think once the waiver's been approved, it's approved for those
For the
5
5
years.
years.
But we can definitely look into that and share with the board.
I think that's an important clarification, because I
Last-
would, employees would want to know, like, if they're signing up for that, they would want to know how long they have.
yeah, it's 5 years. The waiver's 5 years, that's in the code.
The last question I have is,
Then you would reapply again, sorry, for
when will we have an idea of the fiscal impact
the fiscal impact.
of the waiver?
I mean,
In other words, the money that the district would be giving up by waiving the out-of-district tuition. When do we know that? When do we get that?
So, do you want to share?
Go ahead.
Jump in. So, right now, our tuition is approximately $10,000 per out-of-district students that would be
Okay.
required to come. And as you probably recall from the December audit meeting, the auditor shared that that number is calculated through a formula through the audit that is grounded in school code. So the board doesn't make that determination as to what that is. It's calculated based upon the number of
Right.
students, the taxable revenue to general or evidence-based funding, and the amounts of revenue receipts. So that all drives into that tuition cost. So right now, Tom, do you recall, like, I don't even know how many students we have currently paying. I mean, we typically at certain points have had no more than one. So we wouldn't necessarily lose those dollars because we're not receiving them currently.
Okay, so piggybacking off of that, then what about those students that may require speech therapy or physical therapy or that, because that's gonna eventually come out of our pockets then because they're our students, correct?
Sure. So, yeah, so some of that will follow the student in the
It
new
will.
evidence-based funding formula. So
Okay.
based upon how many
Through
students
evidence-based.
our staff would want to then enroll their children in our district,
Uh-huh.
that would then go into the calculation for the state formula in order for us to receive dollars, whether they're earmarked for special education, like I think you're
Yeah.
suggesting, or if it's just going to the general fund that we receive on an annual basis.
So we would get their dollars from, their community wouldn't get it, we would,
We're providing the service.
since we're providing the service.
The evidence-based funding money that would be allocated for that would follow that student. to
We
the
just don't
district.
get the tax dollar.
Correct.
Correct.
Approximately how many students do you think, just roughly, this might impact?
I mean, I think you mentioned 20.
Yeah, this is based on.
20 to 30.
Even less
20 to
years, we're usually covered around that.
But
And again,
I think from Dave's perspective, we've heard this a couple times, and I'm grateful for the association and continuing to keep this in front of us as an issue with our teachers and their concerns around, if other districts are doing this, why can't we consider this? And as Dave outlined, it's been approached a couple different times, and I think the hesitation at those times from the board was, we really appreciate that our teachers want to teach here, but would also appreciate that our teachers live here. And we've articulated this, I have personally articulated this to the city. This goes back to Dave's point about what can we do proactively to find additional housing in Mattoon to be able to provide opportunities for these staff to be here. So that ultimately comes back to Dave's point about it's a recruitment piece right now, and if the board elects not to do that, our guess would be, we'd be the only district in the region that would not elect to do it.
Can I just clarify, hold on, can I just clarify something on that prior, slide? It's 15% of our staff, right? 20 to 30 of our staff with children in that age group, not 20 to 30 students, correct?
correct. But it's 20, 30 staff members. I don't know if, 10 students.
In the past, when we've entertained this, as Dave was saying, in 2016 and 2021, we've asked, so we would have more concrete numbers before we would, action. So we would know specifically how many students and have a little bit
better profile of what those costs would look like.
Yeah, we don't ask people if they're age bearing or not, again, you can't ask that question.
Jay, one question I would like to know when we discuss this too is, I know it's for 5 years, but do we know after these districts have done this, do we know the number of them who has not been approved for the next 5 years? That would be my question. If we got teachers coming in and then we don't get approved the second time.
I've not heard of it being revoked or not.
Okay, thank you.
I think the latest numbers were 793 districts have been approved, and there are about 850 total districts.
In the state.
Okay. So the vast majority.
May I ask Mrs. Nevy a question? Do you want?
Sure.
How does the MEA, what's their stance on this?
We've asked for it multiple times. We really thought in our last negotiation, we were gonna get it. We're disappointed. I know that, I don't think we would lose any teachers that are already in this situation. I think it helps us gain teachers. I think that's the big push right now is we need teachers, and we need good teachers. We don't want the bottom of the barrel because that's what's left over. We want people to come here because they want to come here, and that's one thing. I mean, it really housing is difficult right now for anybody coming to Mattoon to get a job. So we're about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Spelson,
Yes.
in terms of this waiver, not only would it expand our ability to just hire people, it could also help us increase our diversity in our community, in our district.
Potentially, yes.
We should probably be grateful for an opportunity to do that.
So just to make sure I have following, so you would receive the 14,000 roughly from the state to educate the student. Those monies come to our district, is that correct?
The number of, it's based upon the number of students enrolled in our district. So if we meet the certain tier, there's 27 variables. So I have to probably sit down and ask Ryan or Tom to help assist as we walk through that. But that part of that calculation includes whatever dollars we would receive. The additional allocations would come based upon those number of students. So we would receive more in essence from that pool, the more students we have to enroll.
I have a percentage of like what we receive, like say my son and daughter, there's my property taxes and the taxes we get. The state pays, you know, a percentage of what.
Yeah, I'm sure we could figure that out.
State, local, and federal?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a document that was given to the board October, November. The fall financial booklet's what I usually call it, had a breakdown of that, probably had a pie chart in it. I want to say roughly the feds is 13%. The state is supposed to be the majority of it and has not been for some time. But the state and local is running pretty even. But now with the ESSER's dollars and some of the grants we've been getting, that's been skewed a little bit the last couple of years. I don't have that right now in front of me, but if you look back, I know it was in that packet in the fall that we gave out.
So what, Rebecca or Dave, what were the reasons we didn't pass it? I mean, how come this has been sort of a sticking point for years?
I think that was in the slideshow.
Yes. Neighboring districts, us, Charleston, Oakland, for example, in our county, none of us did it. We weren't doing that. It wasn't until probably 3-4 years ago, and then right before COVID and during that you saw really a slide in the number of applicants and people going in teacher ed programs, education. So all of a sudden, that pool, especially in south of I-80, became real competitive because that number got low. The number of candidates, and so we really saw, we would typically in a year get over 4,000 applicants for positions in our districts. Prior to that, sometimes now we cover, sometimes we cap 1,000 per position. So we saw it as well. So that is number one. Can't do that low, and then neighboring districts are looking to do that as well. So if someone's interviewing between us and Charleston, and both, for example, good positions, and they have a family or they have a residence already, and deciding factors, you know, can I bring my kids to the school where I work to do that? And is that, they allow it and we don't, then we're probably not gonna get that good candidate. Or if, I'll tell you what happens often as well, position comes open up in a home district where a teacher lives and their family goes. Great, and that's happened. A great teacher leaves, well, it's in my residence district. My kid, will work there. So, I mean, not to say that didn't have, you know, it's always been the case, but now it's more prevalent because the need's greater. The pool's shallow.
We want to keep our good people.
Can I ask a question, or is that a no-go?
Yes, go ahead.
Mrs. Lee, so when it comes to the teachers wanting these vouchers, does that mean they're open for the education vouchers like Indiana does? Meaning that you would get money coming with you if say, I wanted to send my kid anywhere else, like if you live in Arcola and you want to bring your kid down here with an education waiver, are the teachers union for that or no?
I don't think that's the same thing.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, it would, instead of having to come down and getting a waiver, meaning no money would come with you, with the education waiver like Indiana does, you would bring a certain dollar amount with your child based off the taxes that you pay. So I didn't know if that was something the teachers union was looking into or not.
I don't know, I think it's like, right now we have teachers who, if they want their kids to come here, they're paying the tuition. That's their only option.
Yeah.
So you're getting your money because they're paying the tuition.
Agreed.
Or they're saying, I'm keeping my kid wherever we live. So I don't think that's not ever been a thing. It's been, this would bring some money with them if they have, special needs or.
Illinois does have a voucher system.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I didn't know are you familiar with the one in Indiana?
No.
Well, they get a certain amount that comes, they can pick which school they go to,
Yeah.
and they get a certain dollar amount that goes with them.
Yeah.
Well,
Illinois doesn't have that.
Yeah, that's why I didn't know if the teachers union was interested in something like that because.
I don't know if it's fair to ask her that question right now.
Okay.
So I would ask that we not put her on the spot to answer that question right now.
I mean, if I think it's something that doesn't exist in Illinois, then it doesn't help us right now. This would be something that would help us right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Dave, to kind of tie this back up, I think Dave's just asking if the board has any concerns about us moving forward with placing on the March 14th agenda to move forward with this process, to please reach out to Dave or to anyone else.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Great conversation. All right,
Item 6, reports and recommendations of the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, Dr. Hill.
Well, I have a sidekick tonight. You just thought we'd keep Dave up here all night.
yeah, thanks.
Last night of being 53. Exactly 10 years apart.
Thanks.
Okay. So tonight, we're gonna share with the board, our professional development opportunities and the supports we have in place for our most valued asset, our staff who helps our students learn and grow. So Dave and I are a tag team on this from the time they're hired and onboarded, and then I'll go from when they're ours, kind of what we do as a district.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hill. Appreciate all the love. All right, onboarding orientation. So what happens when you go ahead and approve for teachers, you hire teachers and certified staff in the district, for example. When that happens in class 5 as well, there's an onboarding process that comes through my office. Grace Baxter is in there, she does a wonderful job. But basically, when people are hired, they come to the office, a couple things happen. All the paperwork that needs to be done, state and federal forms. Then we also conduct the FBI, Illinois State Police background check forms that they have done through the lab scan machine for local police department, we get information back there. Insurance, initiate district email process, tech uploads, all those things are taken care of during that process. And then we give them the date that orientation will occur in our district. We have an orientation mentoring program we've had in our district since the mid-90s. It's a state-approved orientation mentoring program. Actually, Eastern Illinois University modeled that program after ours. Del Willison, I think Del Willison put that program together. Your district coach coaching there, do a phenomenal job. So we've had that in our district for several years. It's a 2-year program, and the way that works, in July, we have an orientation program where we bring all the new staff in. One day in the morning, we do the AED CPR training, for example. They have to get certified, registered in that. That's taken care of through people that are licensed to do that. They receive their certificates. And then throughout the next 3 days, a variety of things happen: district policy, building procedures, curriculum, learning standards, evaluation processes that occur, Illinois professional teaching standards. They're all acclimated to that, not only in the district here in this office, but then also at their buildings with their cohorts. Very important process. Why do we do that in July, part of the school starting? Because in that way, when they come in, those things are off the plate, they're ready to go, and really focus on helping kids learn and grow. The whole premise of the program, the mentoring orientation program, is to set people up to succeed, not to fail. That impacts success for students, teachers, retention rates. This is what we want to do. And then also is the balance in the district and building activities. It's a very stressful situation. So not only orientation occurs in our district, but then we also give in year 1 all our new teachers peer district coaches. These are retired master teachers in the district. Lynn Jermont, Chris Bow, for example, are 2 peer district coaches. They go in and work with teachers in the classrooms or their settings where they're at. They create an atmosphere where teachers are not afraid to try new things and fail at. That's how you best learn. You don't learn anything by getting it right the first time. You all learn best through our failures. Someone that recruits and hires and works with a bunch of educators, we're very anal. We don't like to fail in anything. Try giving a graduate student, right, Dr. Larson, in graduate school, they kind of go nuts if you give them that, they can't handle it. So, they don't like to fail, so don't try new things that, they need to try new things and be comfortable with what they're doing. So we create that atmosphere through our peer district coaching procedures that we have. These folks don't report, these 2 peer district coaches don't report to the administrators, they don't evaluate the teachers, they're in there working in the classrooms with teachers, giving them honest feedback, going through mock evaluations even with them. They can have conversations, and they do, and they develop relationships with these folks, and they're there to help them. And then we also give all our new teachers mentors. Mentors are fellow teachers within the building, within their area of content in which they instruct. They help them with planning lessons, understanding following district curriculum, classroom management, linkage to different district resources that they work through and they need access through throughout their first year. And the first year is rough. It's rough for anybody in a new job in any field at any time. So we want to create, again, an atmosphere where there's support, where we set them up to succeed rather than fail. Year 2, a little more informal. They're still working with their peer district coaches, but they're out rolling. And we try to enhance this program every year and get better and enhance the things that we do to meet our new employees where they're at, because that changes over time as well. Their skill sets will bring to the table. But that's in a nutshell what we do with our mentoring and orientation when we bring new people into the district. Then they're integrated into what we're doing, and then we turn over to Dr. Hill, and she oversees our PD.
Yeah, so once our staff members get here, there's just a lot of ongoing learning. And so we have a lot of structures in place in our district. We're really proud of the partnership with MEA. We've been able to find ways to utilize time within the school day and beyond the school day to really meet our teachers' needs. We ask a lot of our teachers. We have a culture of high expectations, and so we believe it's really important to provide supports that they are able to meet those and that they feel valued as a whole person. So some of those structures, we have weekly professional development during the day, and that looks a little bit different at each level. In fact, at elementary level, we're kind of working through that right now, trying to figure out what that's going to look like for next year. But essentially, every week, our staff is engaged in some type of professional development around academic instruction, technology integration, not just stuff, but how do we use technology to transform the way we're teaching and learning, and then social emotional learning, how to teach social emotional skills, how to create a classroom community, and we have that happen at least once a week in every building at each level. We also have monthly professional development at our faculty meetings. Faculty meetings look a little bit differently than they did whenever, I guess if maybe your parents taught or if you taught before. It's a lot different than it used to be. In fact, I think, McLean, when you change yours to be called, it's not even faculty meeting, it's subject to change.
You got it.
Right, so essentially, these are workshop opportunities
We use the teacher leaders in our district to teach each other. We also sometimes bring people in, and we use that hour of time per month as a way to enhance and support the needs that our staff are articulating that they have. Monthly, we also have a learning walk. I would encourage anybody who's interested in that to attend during this time. It's actually Thursday is our next one. We have teams of leaders go through all of our buildings. They're guided by student leaders, and they're looking for examples of excellence, and they're looking for opportunities to give feedback on things that they're seeing. We have a series of questions that we ask our learners and teachers. We have look-fors, so we're looking for evidence of what our vision and our mission is and what goals we're trying to achieve. And then we come together and we celebrate what we saw, and we also talk about between now and the next time, what are some things that we would like to really focus on during these professional development opportunities. Finally, something that our district is getting a lot of attention on, even some national attention, is our embedded coaching processes. So research tells us, I mean, think about like going to the gym as an example. If you are a highly motivated person and you really want to go to the gym, you can see results. If you pair that with a personal trainer or a fitness coach, you're going to see even more results. And so in our district, we have coaches whose job it is to partner with teachers on individual goals around academic efficacy, instructional strategies, social emotional implementation, and technology integration. So there are self-selected goals, and they work with coaches on 6-week cycles. Those coaches also provide a significant amount of ongoing professional development to our staff. So we're really proud of this process and the system that's been set up, and the support that that the board and that our teachers have for for each other too, because it's really created by the excellent teachers that we have working here. We also have some partners that we use, and these are the current focus areas for professional development that align with our school improvement plan and our strategic 5-year plan, Vision 2025. These are the things and the partners that we're utilizing to make sure that we're hitting those targets that we've collectively agreed upon are most important. Instructional strategies, first and foremost. We're partnering with Marzano and Solution Tree on a lot of those things. So to your point, Dr. Coyne, about the learning recovery efforts. NAEP data came out, and NAEP is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and it's a great snapshot because it compares kids across the nation, right? Like it takes into account kids from everywhere. And so we have a nice norm. And what that data told us is that students from lower socioeconomic areas, communities that have less resources, were affected much more significantly during the pandemic, and their learning recovery efforts are going to take longer. We are one of those districts. We are a tier 1 district in evidence-based funding. We're at 68% of adequacy, which means that the state has to give us quite a bit of resources in comparison to our statewide peers. So because of that, we've invested time and energy on instructional strategies that get the biggest bang for the buck. And so we're really working on that with our staff. Along with, we're working with Franklin Covey on that whole person and social emotional learning strategies. And there was just a recent meta-analysis of social emotional learning and its impact on academics. So students who have a strong social emotional learning program perform on average 11 percentile points higher than their peers who do not. So it's really a whole child approach. And in fact, some of the studies that have just recently been done, I think Kaplan just put one out, talked about how it is on par with academic interventions that are just administered by themselves. So social emotional can have the same kind of long-term impact. So in our district, we've been really fortunate to always support that whole child and whole person paradigm and meet the kids where they are. We have all kinds of needs. So we invest in our staff so that they know how to do those things, and that we have the best of the best coming alongside and giving us those resources. Math is certainly an area that we saw significant impact, specifically at the 4th grade level, 7th grade level, and in high school now as our students are getting up toward high school after a few key years of just different learning. And so to your point, Cheryl, with a lot of high impact in-person, face-to-face strategies with our teachers, we're looking at a lot of really cool math stuff. And we've got some great partnerships that are happening there that's ongoing and will continue through the fall. Assessment, as we know, great coaches give great feedback, and we see that that's true also in the classroom. So if students are doing things and they're not getting feedback, they don't know what to correct. So we're really working and focusing on what's the other half of instruction after we teach, how are we checking, and then what's the feedback loop so that kids know what they need to do next. So we're providing supports there, along with transformational learning, which is really just approaching 21st century skills. You know, we want kids to be global citizens and ready to work with all different kinds of people, collaborate, problem solve, and so how can we ensure that our classroom practices prepare them adequately for that? Just like you were saying with hands-on experiences at LIFT and in all of our classrooms, really. And then finally, we partnered with Max Teaching Strategies back in 2010, and those strategies are just reading and analytic writing in the content areas. So Mark Bourget, he was a great trainer. He came and worked with our district back then, and they released a second edition. And so working with our secondary teachers specifically on how do we really use science and social studies as an opportunity to teach kids how to read complex texts and then respond to them analytically, which is the kind of writing they'll probably be faced with most if they go on to post-secondary and or just trades where there's a lot of manual type of reading. So those are the current focus areas. And we just really wanted to say thank you to the board because you have historically supported our staff and recognized that investing in our people helps them be their best for our kids. And that's where the real impact happens, right, between teachers and kids and relationship. And so we appreciate that ongoing support. We'd be happy to take any questions or discussion.
Dave, if you hire somebody in January, is the process kind of the same, or is that?
Then they come in
until?
They would, we would get them immediately with a peer coach, one of our peer district coaches, do some informal, obviously the onboarding, but some informal, just orientation, get with a peer district coach, and then a mentor as well. Then they come in that full orientation that July as well. So we now can have that full experience as well. But yeah, that has happened from time to time where you have mid-year hires.
Any other questions? And so I emailed the board asking for us to have an agenda item to address teachers' preparedness. And so one of the, I think, benefits for me being part of the NCS or those committees was to be with teachers, parents, staff. And one of the voices that I heard were teachers saying that I don't feel prepared to teach the health curriculum, the old health curriculum as it was. And so some of the concerns were, and I'm not sure all the details, but just that there was concern about teaching that. And so for me as a board member, I want to make sure that we attend to the teachers who need extra support, or they want training, or they want re-education, you know, things have changed a lot. And so that we support and provide that. Because coupled with that, I learned that we have outside sources coming in. So for me as an educator, outside sources, you lose the control of the curriculum that we spend a lot of time approving, right, and examining and writing those things. So when these outside sources come in, what's the check and balance for that curriculum? And our parents, you know, I think we do a really good job with health curriculum sending that out so parents can opt out if they choose to. So if you have outside sources, is that now part of the information that's shared? So if we can put some guardrails, control the health curriculum by saying, let's prepare, make sure our teachers feel qualified, educated, and with all the knowledge and information and training they need to do that, that's a concern for me. And I want to describe the teachers that shared that and they had some concerns. And I also agree with you, Christy, I think as a psychologist, SEL, I've been learning that for years, and I think we trained school counselors about that. And I liked your question, Angela, today. I hadn't thought about that who is delivering the SEL curriculum in the school? Is it the SEL coaches that we specifically have?
It's our teachers and our SEL coaches come alongside them. So like, I don't want to bring our teachers on the spot, but we have a few here tonight. But they provide, especially in elementary, when it's kind of like classroom communities or during morning meeting time, they're doing those lessons. And then in the middle school, it's during advisory, and at the high school, it's during wait time. So the coaches are there to help prepare the teachers on what to do. Our social workers, psychologists, and counselors do our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. So they're working with kind of like those targeted social academic instructional groups and or individual. But the tier 1, just global curriculum, what everybody gets, that goes through our classroom teachers. Yeah.
And is the SEL curriculum something, because everyone has their own perspectives of what's appropriate, right? So do parents have the opportunity to look at the SEL curriculum and opt out?
Yeah, so on our website, we have the map, which is basically what the topics are for every grade level. And then the resources that we use are Second Step and Leader in Me. And I think those things are on here as well. I know we
Were you able to
updated
find them, Dale? Because you had asked me to send you the link. I didn't find them, but maybe I missed them.
for,
For the second step video.
the Second Step videos are not on there because they're proprietary, so they don't let us, we have to buy that, so they don't just, it's not just open source. But what we do put as open source is like, these are the topics of what is covered during them, but we just can't, we don't have the copyright to be able to put that on there. I believe, if people were looking at what the topics are and they wanted to see it, I'm sure teachers could share that. But the videos definitely are not on here. Yeah. I think some of the videos, like the one you found, I think some of them are samplers on YouTube, like there's some on YouTube, and then there's some that I think each grade level might have a couple, but
They're hard to find. The
Yeah.
content's hard to find. Because I think, Rebecca, when you said that you offer that as a high school, I think that's super helpful, that everyone gets to see it, look at it from the health curriculum. And can we follow that same model with SEL? And is that something that?
Yes, everything but the, like, if it's copyrighted, we can't, you would just, but everything else, yeah, absolutely. Like, I think everything's pretty much in Schoology, like, at least I know elementary, everything is in there. Middle school, there's a day-by-day schedule, like this is what's covered every day. It'll say, like, Second Step lesson 9, what the topic of the lesson is, but if more in-depth things, I'm sure people would be willing to share that, yeah.
And what's the opt-out process? Like, I understand it's an option, but what is that, if I was in Nate's building, what does that look like in the middle school?
So I think there's like 3 things that we can do like an official opt-out for, but I do think the board does have policy that allows for parents to make a request. I think it's 6.26, so maybe, and so there's a form that just says like, this upcoming video or this upcoming whatever it is, I'd like for reconsideration for my child. And that's in our current existing policy. But in terms of like an actual formal opt-out, I think that we have to have that for, help me out, but I think it's sex ed, dissection, and something else that I can't remember right now. But there's like 3 things that we have to have like its own special, like, this is coming up, everybody, But if there's just something that comes up that like, maybe it's about, it could be something like our pet just passed away and there's a book coming up and I just think it's gonna be too much of a trigger, they can fill that in. So there is a process for that. I think the board just adopted that maybe in December 21 so, and I appreciate you saying that about the whole curriculum because our curriculum is intended and designed with those, portrait of a graduate, global citizens, caring collaborators who are inclusive and can work with all different types of people and appreciate different types of people. But we recognize that if there's a specific trigger, that's what that's in there for. But we feel like we've had this, this curriculum now, I think for 4 or 5 years, and we're seeing that it works really well for our kids. And when we talked with the Chamber of Commerce, Ed Dowd, the chamber director, did a survey of like 450 businesses, and they just said, like, what do you want in your graduates and what do you want in your employees? And it was, I need people who can appreciate team members and work well together and solve problems. And it was all of these, what we sometimes call soft skills that aren't soft at all. And so really our workforce is even driving some of that we've got to better prepare, well-rounded, caring, and just people who are ready to go out and work together to make our communities better. So it's a longer answer than what there is a form.
Yeah, I think just, to me as a mom, like, I just want it to be easily accessible, right? So I want to look at SEL curriculum, and I'm not a Schoology expert, I'm not sure how to navigate that. How do I find the SEL, how do I find health curriculum, and then how do I opt out if I choose not to?
Right.
Those are the things I think as school buildings, right, because every building runs its has its own culture. How do we make that as transparent as possible for parents so that they can exercise what they feel is right for their children? And then how do we, on the other hand, support teachers who would like additional training, back to education, you know, whatever we need to do to help them feel comfortable with the health curriculum.
Yeah, and I think to that point, our principals have really good relationships with their teachers, and if teachers ask for something, they want to go to a conference, we didn't even put that on there. But like, if teachers say, you know, the annual tech conference, our principals do a great job of saying, yes, we'll go, we'll send you, and if they need specific training on things, there are several conferences, and I think our elementary PE teachers go to the PE conference, the state PE conference every year. So yes, I agree, and I appreciate that. Just awareness of making sure teachers get what they need. And also, I just wanted to say thank you to Katie and Callie, because to your point about making things easily accessible, they've been doing a ton of work on like we changed student services to teaching and learning, so it's more clear, like if I'm wanting to know something about what's being taught or learned. So they're doing some work on that, and so things can be a little bit more easily accessible.
Yeah, and one other quick point, because it comes back to Brandy, your point about SEL and how, and Brandy, you may have been part of this back in 2017, how we arrived as a district, history of where we are today, to Heidi's point about just there's a need in our society, and to Christy's point about what we hear from organizations and business. It goes back to a conversation with a group of parents after that incident in 2017 that started the conversation around why do we need social and emotional support for our students and for our staff. So there's a history here that I think has developed to the point of where we are today. And additionally, to Katie and Callie's efforts, it's more accessible than it ever has. Difficult though sometimes, and this is, in all fairness, as a parent, it's difficult to go and access what you specifically may want to find and say, I'm not too sure if I want my son or daughter experiencing this content. The first step, and it's back to what I encourage Brandy, the first step would be reach out to the building, reach out to the teacher, because they're gonna know when that content is being delivered and what specifically, they're the experts when it comes to that. So I think that's the key point I'm trying to make here, is that starting with the person that sits the closest to it can help provide that direct answer or greater direction and understanding from the parent that may have a question around it. So I think that what our district has put together, obviously I'm a little biased, but we have a strong SEL curriculum that I think most parents appreciate, most of our business organizations and leaders appreciate. So I think it's back to, if there are specific issues or concerns around that, please feel free to reach out to any one of us at the central office level, or anyone, more importantly, anyone at the building level that can assist with those. So.
Any further
Teachers for doing all the cool stuff that you do.
Thank you for your presentation.
Does that include books that are read to fifth graders at Williams that involve feelings of lesbian couples and how that's a normal family, normalizing that without the parents?
Todd, this isn't the time yet.
It is the time.
No, you had a chance at the beginning
This
for
hasn't been
non-agenda.
brought up yet tonight.
You had a chance during non-agenda business.
Okay, well, I came in late, but I didn't hear anything.
Well,
And I think it's a hugely important topic.
we'll come next month and put that on for a topic to be discussed, and then we.
What was discussed? I mean, I walked in 6 minutes late, so the pledge, and you guys were talking about SEL, so it must have been boom, boom.
As I'm saying, come next month and you can ask.
Because there should certainly be an opt-out for that, for those kind of things.
Moving on, Mr. Condon, you're up.
Yeah, item 7.1 is a presentation and board action on the 23-24 school calendar. Let me pull that up real quick, but the process has been in the district in the past, has been to utilize a collectively bargained group of folks. And I'll share some of that as we walk through this, but to offer you some understanding of what are the requirements behind the calendar, 176 student attendance days are required by school code, 180 teacher work days, which allow for 4 teacher institute days, and as Christine Day just presented, what is included on those institute days often reflects our professional development opportunities for staff. So there was a registration survey that started probably last April and ran through August. So parents that were registering students were asked to fill out a survey. We had, I think, over 1,700 responses to that. So appreciate the parents that took the time to complete that. Of that, 75% of the parents that responded were in favor of the current start and end of school. Fall and spring parent-teacher conferences are new for this year, so we have not had the opportunity for the spring conference, but that's coming up on March 8th. So we're looking forward to that. And graduation has typically remained that Friday before Memorial Day. That's just been more of a tradition within that school district. So to reference the calendar committee, they're made up of 2 NBA members. This is Ms. who's here tonight, Ms. Beach, 2 MESBOOK members, Danny Simpson, Amy St. John, board member Heidi Larson was representing the board, and Christy and myself sat on this committee. So this, the calendar committee shared 2 calendar choices, one of which, if you want to guess, I'll whip out the closest dollar I got in my pocket for which one do you think has the guaranteed spring break versus the one that does not. And so the calendar A is the one with the full spring break, which falls before Easter, which is early this next year at the end of March. So just to kind of give some numbers, and for high school staff, this kind of falls within the first semester, second semester, the balance of those 2 semesters. So this is typically something that they look at from calendar lens. So you see there that the first semester for student attendance is slightly less than the second semester. So here are kind of the key points, an overall summary of the calendar recommendation. School Teacher Institute days will start on August 14th or August 15th. That's a day off of what they started this current school year, with the first student attendance day on August 16th. The end of school, the last student teacher attendance day is planned for Tuesday, May 21st. And as mentioned earlier, graduation would fall before Memorial Day, that Friday the 24th. 2 parent-teacher conferences scheduled again for this upcoming school year. They reflect what they currently are in this year's calendar. So a Thursday evening and Friday in October, and then a Thursday afternoon and evening in March, and then an early dismissal for that Friday in March to allow students and staff to leave after students dismiss. Winter break. So we did receive some feedback around winter break this year in regards to January 2nd, our staff returned, and January 3rd, our students returned. So this next year, the winter break will extend through January 2nd, and then we'll have a January 3rd Teacher Institute Day with students to resume classes on January 4th. And as I mentioned before, spring break is that final week in March that aligns to the Easter holiday. And then the Teacher Institute Day, we have an additional Teacher Institute Day this upcoming year, because this year the regional office elected to have a regional institute, which was hosted at Mattoon High School as well as Charleston High School. But they have elected not to do that next year, so it allows for our district to utilize that day on April 15th. Here's a quick glimpse. I know it's small. This will be posted on our website starting tomorrow, so parents can access if the board so chooses to approve this. And then some of you are familiar with the at a glance. Here's a draft of that at a glance that parents can print off so they can begin planning any trips or family vacations around planting or planning. So I would ask for the board to consider the administrative team's recommendation for calendar A for the 23-24 school year.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion, second.
Okay, are there any questions?
I can just make one, like, I've had 2 kindergarten students come to me. They did not realize that school started the following day for kindergartners. If that could be added to the schedule, if that's the case again for this year, at least at a glance, calendar.
Sure.
As a parent, I agree with that, because I have 3 kids and I have a kindergartner, and I had no idea. I was getting my kids ready to all go to school the same day, had another parent not told me. So I'm with you on that, I had no idea.
Simple question.
Thank you.
Callie, will you call roll, please?
Ryder,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Kepley,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Skidmore.
Yes. We do not have any new or unfinished business, but we will have an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. And I need a motion at 8:30. Go into executive session. I need a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you and have a good evening.